Hello there everyone, and welcome to part 2 of how to make a boss in Tmodloader. In the last episode I showed you how to create a boss summon item, the basic core of the boss without any AI, the boss down system, and the boss expert mode, master mode bag. In this video we're going to be covering the AI of the boss. I showed the boss we're going to create in the last video, so we're going to jump straight into it. So the first thing we're going to be doing is setting up some variables that will handle the tracking of the different states that the boss is in, the timers, and also keeping track of substates. So the way we do this is doing private int state. Then we're going to do get equals, then we're going to put a case npc.ai 0 set npc.ai 0 is equal to value. So state is going to be whether it's in the first phase or second phase. Private int substate, this will be AI1. Then we're going to have a state timer, which is going to be, this is actually going to be a float, not an int. So we just do npc AI2 set equals npc.ai2 equals value. And we're going to create a second state timer. State timer 2 get equals npc.ai3 set equals npc.ai3 equals value. And then we're going to track if we are in the second phase with a private bool. Private bool, second phase. We're going to do equal state is equal to 1. Now that we have that, we can now override AI. So first of all, we need to handle the targeting logic. So handle targeting, do if npc.target is equal to 0 or npc.target is equal to 255 or main.player npc.target.dead or not main.player npc.target.active. So in these conditions, there is no target for the npc, so we do npc.target closest. We then set the player target, do player is equal to main.player npc.target. So this just makes life easier not having to enter this every single time. So we also want to add in the despawn behavior. We do if player.dead or not player.active. So we had a target, we no longer do. So we want to now despawn. We do npc.velocity.y minus equals 0.04f. And we do npc.encourage despawn in the course of about 10 So what's happening here is if there's no target found, it's going to start moving upwards, and then a despawn timer is going to begin. It's going to keep checking if there's an NPC. If there isn't, it's going to keep trying to despawn, and then as the time goes by, it will despawn. But if it finds a target, it will no longer despawn. Or it shouldn't despawn. So now we want to handle the state machine. So what we can do is switch state, case 0, break, case 1, break. So in case 0, we're going to have handle first state, pass in player. And for the second, handle second state, pass in player. And that's the main core for that. Everything else is going to be handled within these two functions here. You do private void handle first state, player, player. Private void handle second state, player, player. So we'll go into the first state. And this is where these substates are going to come in. So move towards player. If substate is equal to 0, we want to set up the speed. So base move speed is going to be 5. Going to add an acceleration speed, which is going to be 0.04f. Going to adjust these for expert mode. If main.expert mode, base move speed, we're going to set to 7. Acceleration speed equals 0.15. You can also do plus equals and do that instead, but I prefer to set an absolute value. So now we want to move towards target. This is going to be another method that we're going to create. I'm going to do move to target, pass in player, base move speed, acceleration speed, and what's going to come out of this is an out float distance to player. So now let's create this method. Private void move to target, player, player, float move speed, float acceleration speed. Actually, can change that to rate. Out float distance to player. So first of all, we want to set the distance to player. Do distance to player is equal to a vector 2. We want to make sure this is the Microsoft.xna.framework vector dot distance of npc.center and player.center. We then want to check we want to set the move speed correctly, so scroll down a bit. Float movement speed is equal to move speed divided by distance to player. Float target velocity x is equal to player.center player.center.x minus npc.center.x multiplied by movement speed. Then we do the same for the y. Target velocity y is equal to player.center.y minus npc.center.y multiplied by movement speed. We then want to apply acceleration. So we're going to be using a few if statements here. So first of all, we want to do if npc.velocity.x is less than target velocity x, npc.velocity.x plus equals acceleration rate, and if npc.velocity.x is less than 0f and target velocity x is greater than 0f, we want to increase the x velocity to be a bit faster. So increase velocity by acceleration. Further increase velocity. This ensures that the NPC doesn't move too slow if they're very far away from the velocity. So we then need to do this 4 more times. So what I'm going to do is copy this, paste it, change the less than to greater than, change the plus to minus, change the less than to greater, change the greater to less, and do minus equals. That's for the x. Copy both of those. And now change the x to the y. Go for each of these. Change that to y. Change that to y. Then these to y. That didn't get changed. There we go. And that's that. Everything is now set for moving to the target. So let's head back up to the first state. So now we want to increase the state timer. I'm just going to do state time plus equals 1f. Check if we need to change substate. If change substate. We're going to create a float called threshold, which is going to be the amount of time that's passed. And set it to 600. If main.expert mode. We want this to actually happen quicker, so we can do threshold times equals. I'm going to do 0.3f. This will be a bit quicker if we're in expert mode. They'll happen sooner. Change substate if conditions met. So we're going to do if state timer is greater than or equal to the threshold, substate becomes 1, state timer becomes 0, state timer 2 becomes 0, even if we haven't touched that. npc.net update equals true, and we're going to return, so we're not continuing this part of the code. So now we're going to handle the second substate. So if substate is equal to 1, this is going to be a charge at player. So again, we're going to basically do something similar to this. We do float base speed, we're going to set it to 6. If main.expert mode base speed equals 7f. and I like doing absolutes for that. So now we need to handle the charge velocity. So we want to get the delta x, which is player.center.x minus mc.center.x. Then we do the same thing for y. Change x to y. We then want to get the distance, so float distance to player is equal to a float of math.square root of delta x times delta x plus delta y times delta y. We're then going to calculate the velocity, so we do float movement speed is equal to base speed divided by distance to player. Then vector 2 velocity is equal to a new vector 2 of delta x delta y multiplied by the movement speed. We then want to apply the velocity to NPC, so npc.velocity is equal to velocity. We're then going to switch our substate to 2, which is the duration of the charge. So move to post charge state, so substate is equal to 2. Update network. So we do npc.net update equals true. If npc.net span is greater than 10, net spam, sorry, I can't see very well on the second monitor, npc.net spam equals 10. Then we're going to do return. This code doesn't run instantly. If substate is equal to 2, we want to increase our timer. So state timer plus equals 1f. We want to slow down the charge after a certain amount of time. So we do if state timer is greater than or equal to, we'll do 48. We then want to slow the velocity. So we do npc.velocity times equals, and it's going to be a very small amount. So that's 0.98f. Just based on difficulty. If main.expert mode mc.velocity times equals 985f. If velocity close to 0, do if math.absolute of the mc.velocity.x is less than 0.1. We do npc.velocity.x equals 0. And we do the same for the y. This way we are checking the velocity is being set back to 0 after a certain amount of time. We use the absolute value, so it's always checking the positive number instead of having to deal with negatives. And we're doing 0.1 because it's, well, actually we're going to do 0.05 because that will allow us to be very close to 0. Handle state change him. Oops. Int state threshold. We're going to set, well, we're going to actually change that to threshold again. Int threshold is going to be 150 if main.expert mode threshold equals 100. Handle state change if state timer is greater than or equal to threshold. Increment second timer, so state timer 2 plus equals 1. Reset main timer, state timer equals 0. Reset target, so we can do npc.target is equal to 255. Change substate. So the way we're using the second timer is to determine how many times the NPC has charged. So we're going to have it charge 2 times. So we can do if state timer 2 is greater than or equal to 2f. If so, we're going to set its substate back to 0 and reset state timer 2. And then we are going to do an else substate equals 1. Now I've just realized there's a small problem with my code. With where we start this, we need to do else. Same here. Else if. Also going to get rid of that return because we need to write some code underneath here. So at the end of all of these, we want to check if we need to switch to the second state. Check second state switch. So we do float low health threshold. We'll set that to 0.35 F, so about 35%. If the float of npc.life is less than float npc.life max multiplied by low health threshold. We want to set our state to 1. Set substate to 0. State timer is also equal to 0. State timer 2 is also equal to 0. So we're setting all the AI variables. Handle network npc.net update equals true. And if npc.net spam greater than 10, npc.net spam equals 10. So that's going to be the core for our first state. For our second state, we are going to be doing something similar. We're going to have the well, we're basically going to copy all of this. It's going to have the movement and charge him. So copy that into the second state. But what we're going to do is modify these values so it's a bit faster for movement. Let's do that. Anything else I need to change here? We'll lower the threshold. And in here, we'll handle the secondary action, which is firing the projectile. So what we want to do is if the NPC dot position, nope, NPC dot position dot y plus NPC dot height is less than the player dot center dot y and the distance to player is less than 500. Let's get rid of that second batch of parenthesis. We want to increase the secondary timer if the player isn't dead. If not, player.dead. State timer 2 plus equals 1. We then want to set up the threshold for how when we're able to shoot the projectile. So handle projectile threshold float proj threshold is equal to, and we want this to be less than the main threshold, so we can set this to 120. If main.expert mode, we'll do times equals 0.4f, so it'll happen more often. Handle shooting projectile. So if state timer 2 is greater than or equal to the threshold, we want to reset the timer. State timer 2 is equal to 0. We want to set the move speed. So float proj speed, we're going to set to 7 and adjust it based on expert mode. Do 8.5. Calculate damage. So we can do int proj damage is equal to int npc.damage times 0.5f. So it does half of what the NPC's damage would be. Float proj knockback and set to 3f. If main.expert mode, the damage we're going to increase by 15%. And increase the knockback. With those variables set, we can now shoot our projectile. So we're going to create a method for this, but first we're going to do shoot projectile. We're going to do player, which is the target, mod content dot projectile type. We haven't made this yet, but we're going to do tutorial boss projectile. Pass in speed, speed, damage, and knockback. So let's go down and create that method. Private void shoot projectile, player int type, float speed, int damage, float knockback. We want to get the target position. We can do a vector 2 of proj target is equal to new player dot Try that again. Player.center.x minus npc.center.y. Sorry.x. Player.center.y minus npc.center.y. Calculate the distance. Float. X times X minus dot Y. We then want to do float target distance is equal to the speed divided by distance. Vector 2 projectile velocity is equal to target times target distance. The spawn point is mc.center plus the velocity times 10. So now we need to handle the network logic. If main.netMode is not equal to netMode ID dot multiplayer climb int projectile ID is equal to projectile dot new projectile npc dot get source from AI. We're then going to pass in the spawn position, which is spawn, then the velocity, the type is type, damage is damage, knockback is knockback. We don't need to set anything else. If net mode is we want to do net message dot send data message ID dot sync npc -1 null, pass in projectile ID, and that's created our projectile. Let's head on back to here. We're going to ignore that error for now, and that's the main state done. So just these values. Oops, not 97. Don't need to worry about anything else there. Second one, we're going to lower this. Keep that same, keep that same. Lower the threshold a bit. We can increase the number of time it's charging. We can increase it to 4. And then we have everything we need for that. Basically, the code is the exact same for the second state. The thing we're changing is adding in this, changing the speeds. And that should cover that. So now let's handle the animation of the NPC. Do override find frame. So the first phase loops between 0 and 3. So int start frame is equal to 0, int end frame is equal to 3. We adjust this for second phase. If second phase start frame is equal to 4, end frame is equal to 7. We want to ensure the frame is within that range. To do this, we do if npc.frame.y is less than start frame times frame height. npc.frame.y is equal to start frame times frame height. Handle animation. I'm going to set the frame speed to 5. We do npc dot frame counter plus equals 0.5f. Then we do frame counter plus equals npc dot velocity dot length divided by 10f. So this will have a static increase and then an increase based on the velocity of the NPC. So we do if npc.frameCount is greater than or equal to frame speed. We reset the frame count. We increase the Y by frame height. Then we loop to start if npc.frame.y is greater than end frame times frame height. npc.frame.y equals start frame times frame height. So that is our AI done. So let's now create this projectile. Mod projectile. Override set defaults. Projectile dot width is equal to 22. Oops. Projectile dot height 48. Set AI style to 0. Damage class we're going to set to magic. Set it to be hostile. Ignores water. Ignores tiles. Lasts for 5 seconds. Penetrates once. So override AI. Player equals main dot player int projectile dot AI 0. If player dot dead or not player dot active, return projectile dot velocity equals player dot center minus projectile dot center dot safe normalize. But to 2.0 we need to import that from framework, multiply by 6f. Rotation is equal to velocity dot to rotation plus math helper dot pi over 2. So that's pretty basic, pretty simple. And that should be everything covered. Let's just go through. We have the boss down system, which has been set. We have our tutorial boss, which has all the AI. We need to actually import this. Make sure that works. That's all working. Our items. We have the boss bag, which I believe is all correct. The boss summon item should also be correct. So we have everything. Let's save all. Let's run Terraria and make sure everything's working. Okay, now that we're in Terraria, let's load the world. Let's get our summon item, which is that one. Let's also just enable God mode quickly. There we go. So we've summoned it. It's moving towards us. It's started to charge. Charges slowly, so let's just lower the boss HP. There we go. It's now in the second phase. We need to just lower it up here. Let's create the projectile. Projectiles come towards us. Because we have God mode on, I don't think it actually does anything. And then kill it. It drops our bars. And there we go. So that's our NPC. So I know it's taken a very long time to get these 2 videos out, and I do apologise for that. Life has been hectic. But we now got our boss. So thank you everyone for watching. I hope you have enjoyed. I hope you found this helpful. Hopefully you'll be able to create your own bosses with completely custom AI. So hopefully you've enjoyed this video. If you have, be sure to give the video a like and subscribe if you're not subscribed to the channel already. It helps out for sure. So until the next one, thank you everyone for watching, and goodbye.